Hello. I hope this episode of Boomer Life Stories and Lessons finds you well. It's always our intent to create and spread a little bit of happiness around the world. And we do that hopefully by telling stories with a positive spin or a positive outcome or providing food for thought, right? So my name is Ron, and we're about to start episode 15. I hope you've been along the journey with me and you've viewed the first 14 episodes. If you haven't, please do so. I think you'll find them interesting as well. And if you want to add to the interesting part to this channel by supplying us with your own personal story that has a positive outlook or spin to it, please see the email listed below and shoot us your story and let us read it over, and we'll be in touch with you, and maybe we can share that with our other viewers on this channel. Our goal is to kind of push back on all that negativeness out in the news and in the world around us by just focusing on what's positive, the good things that are happening to us in life. I know there's a lot of bad things going on presently, but I'm the eternal optimist. No matter how bad it gets, it's going to get better. At least that's my attitude. And so far, I've been right. Okay? So, like, share, and subscribe. If any of this is of interest to you, please let your friends know about it. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start the new episode. I was up visiting my brother in Colorado after not having seen him for a very long time. And if you know anything about twins, we're very close. We have lots of other friends, but there's always that special place for your twin. And I have a sister, and I love her very dearly, sis. You know that. But I was up there visiting my brother one day. And if you've never been to Colorado, go. It's a beautiful state. There's a lot to see and do there. But it was perhaps my first time up to Colorado, visiting my brother. He had changed jobs and moved from southeast part of the country up into Colorado. And we decided to go to the mountains because my brother's got a lot of my Uncle Babe in him. My Uncle Babe loved to drive around all over the country in the backwoods and that sort of thing. And my brother, I don't think he can find a better thing to do when he's up in the mountains on a weekend than just go drive around and see the mountains and nature and so forth. But that's what happened. I went up there. We went up into the mountains. And although it was good weather down in the Denver area, okay, it wasn't in Denver, but it was outside of Denver. When we went up into the mountains, there was snow still on the ground. And it looked like it was, as we would say in the South, it's spitting snow, right? It's fixing to snow. It's kind of interesting. I've had some friends from up north say, what is this fixing to? And I said, well, all that means is it's just a Southern way of saying you're getting ready to do something. I'm fixing to go to the store. And they would say to me, well, there's no fixing the store. You just go to it, right? It's interesting the differences in how people speak in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And oh, by the way, I do digress. I was over in London, one of my first few trips, on a train going from one town to the next. And as we were riding that train, I kept looking out the window and we'd pass through these communities and I would see toilet. It was like always toilet on the sides of these buildings. So I turned to one of my friends who had been in Great Britain for quite a while, and I said to him, what is this with them writing toilet on the sides of the building always? It's nice little signs and everything. He started laughing and he said, it's not toilet, Ron, it's to let. And what that means is they're renting the place out. So we do speak the same language, but we're also divided by that same language, right? But in any case, Donald and I went up to the mountains, and I was taken aback at the beauty. The snow on the ground, the birch trees is just in the mountains in the background. The elk is all over the place. Don't go up to an elk. They'll charge you and throw you and hurt you badly. A lot of people think nature is benign. No, nature can be sometimes very violent. But you stay a good distance from the elk. You don't spook them, they won't spook you, and you can enjoy the vista. But we went up through Black Hawk, and no, we did not stop to gamble. And we drove around the town, and we drove up into the city just up the mountain a ways from Black Hawk. And it's not that far, it's like a stone's throw away. It's called Central City, if I've gotten the name right, remembering it correctly. And it's a quaint little town, very quiet compared to where the casinos are down in Black Hawk. But it's very picturesque as well. And so we went just up the mountain a little further, just outside of Black Hawk. There was this cemetery there. And the cemetery was, it was a very old cemetery, going back to the 1800s. People were buried there. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories based on those people that had grown up and lived there all their lives and their ancestors who had originally come to that area. A lot of stories. But this is not about their stories. This is about that cemetery. It's kind of interesting. There was no fence around the cemetery. It was just row upon row upon row of graves. And sometimes it's just interesting to go and walk through the graveyard and read the tombstones, right? You can find some brilliantly written epitaphs, right? And I've written my own. I hope it's true. He was a father of much light who knew of no lasting darkness, right? That's what I'd like to see on my tombstone. But we were just walking through the graveyard, and we're looking, see what the oldest grave we could find. And I walked up to this perfectly good gate. It was metal posts sticking up with what I would call a hurricane frame of wiring stretched across the gate, and you would just open the latch, and then you would walk through the gate, and there was the graveyard. But the thing was, it was just the gate. There was no fence around the grave. And for some reason, I thought that was so striking. It was kind of a metaphor about life, and perhaps life and death. Again, if you have any type of religious beliefs, you believe that life does not end here, right? And I'm a religious person. I believe that life goes on. So when I saw that grave, that gate just before the grave, it occurred to me that that gate was an entry point, and it was guarding the grave, but it couldn't contain the spirit because there was no fence around it. So I don't know if you are familiar with haiku and senrus, or if I'm pronouncing it right, but they're very, very short poems. The haikus are 5-7-5 in terms of syllables. You have 5 syllables to use on the first line, 7 syllables to use on the second line, and 5 syllables to use to say what you need to say on the third line. So it occurred to me that this gate that guarded that grave was a haiku, right? And this is what I wrote. Upon this mountain, where gate with no fence guards grave, my spirit is stilled. 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 Upon this mountain, where gate with no fence guard's grave, my spirit is stilled. It was so peaceful. There was a gentle wind, a lightly chilling wind that was blowing across the cemetery. But then again, it was kind of still winter up in those mountains. It just spoke to me in ways I cannot describe with words. It was an emotional event. And I went to a seminar. It was basically a business communication seminar. And something was said there that made a lot of sense to me. And it said that by the age of 12 or 13, our values have been set pretty much by what we've seen, smelt, tasted, heard, felt, endured, experienced, etc. through the first 12 to 13 years of our life. And then afterwards, in order to change a person, they have to go through something called a significant emotional event. And I'm here to tell you that that grave that was guarded by that gate, as I stood there and looked at it, was a significant emotional event. I've never been the same. I did enjoy my visit with my brother, and I got more out of that visit than I could have expected. And I hope you've experienced something similar. A moment of reflection, a pause in the complexity of life, a place and a point at which you simply exist. And with that, my friends, I hope you are well and doing well. You're always on my mind. Take care, and I will see you in the next